Hey, how's it going?
Good. Are you waiting for a
Good.
response?
Yes, yes, I
Hey,
was
tell
wondering
us
if
about
I
this
just know
Ignite
that.
class this morning. Who's teaching?
Um,
Tell us a little more about the topic and the teacher.
Dan Kennedy. Yeah, he's gonna teach and he'll kind of set the stage for everything. This is the first class in Ignite, so it kind of sets the stage for Ignite, what you should be doing in real estate. And he has some pretty cool insights because he's been in the business for 15 years and he crushes it. Went from solo to just the little admin to then hiring a team. And so it is going awesome for him as he just grows and grows. So if you can make it, it should be a good one.
Nice. That sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah. Dan Kennedy is awesome. Good one to know. And he's always my example for you don't need to be that like outgoing, fun personality type to crush real estate. Because when you meet him, you're like, "Oh, you seem like you would probably be shy or more of an introvert than an extrovert." And yet he crushes it.
That was a good save. That started off like a backhanded compliment.
No, no. He's my example for everyone's different and everyone can make it work. So he impresses me often. Okay, what can I help you
Nice.
all with? What questions, thoughts, problems are coming up?
I
I'll
don't know.
throw one out. So, I would love to hear any sort of strategy or tactic that you use when you've spoken to someone, they've given you all the yeses, you've already had a buyer consult with them, and then um, it just becomes hard to re-sync up with them. And I know life happens and, sometimes they'll just reach back out when they can, but if let's say it's somebody who's like, yeah, I need to buy a house right now, and then they go quiet after
Mhm.
you've like completed a consult with them and they want to start looking at houses. How do you personally approach re-engaging them and getting them, to that next step of walking houses with you?
Yeah. Well, so first thing, my favorite way to do it is from the buyer consultation. I always try to move right into actually scheduling the next time we meet. And so I like to, in my buyer consultation, I will actually pull up the MLS and find some houses, and we will find some ones that we want to go see and set an appointment. So, like if I did that today, I might say, let's go tomorrow, Friday or Saturday, and with these couple that we found, and then we can add a few more if we find any between now and then, like if something new goes on the market. Um, and so that's the first thing. Always have like the next appointment. It's kind of the idea of like let them know what's happening next, which is always a good idea, but this is like when we're going to meet next. So then let's say you go out on those appointment or those showings and you didn't find it. Say, great. So let's go find some more houses. When would you like to go see those again? Assuming that new homes come on the market, do you want to go in a few days, in another week, and kind of it will all depend on their timeline, right? If they're like needing to buy a house, they might start with we need to live in this area, and then it's like we could live in anywhere in this area because there's such a need. So if there's not the inventory out there, then you can start going there. Um, and then I try to get like open communication. This is always hard. People don't want to hurt your feelings, but if they hate you, to say it in a mean way, then they don't want to work with you. They're not going to want to show houses. They're not excited. I'm not thinking this happened with you, Kylie, by the way. But if
I
that's
can
something
take it. It's okay.
I don't think that's likely. I don't think people will hate you after meeting you. But sometimes you just don't jive, right? Like you
Yeah.
just you're like, I wouldn't be friends with these people. I don't want to hang out with them. You like not excited to show them any houses. And if that's the case, they might be feeling that too. And so like just trying to help people be honest, like, hey, if you ever think that we're not a fit, like you can just let me know. Like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna go run hard and find the best deal and do all of this work for you. But if you ever feel like we're not gelling, like just be honest, it's not gonna hurt my feelings. Um,
So
even something like that, it
do
might
you
not help.
s- do you schedule like that next step even before? So something I run into, I would say 90% of the time is they haven't yet spoken to a mortgage person. So
Hmm.
that in my mind is the next step. Hey, let's get in a group chat. We're going to get that scheduled for you. Usually they're able to meet with a mortgage person in the next day or two.
Hmm.
So I haven't thought to schedule the time or day we're going to go walk houses. Does that make sense? Like that's
Yeah.
I think where I'm trying to figure out how to pick up the momentum again
Yeah.
after they speak with a mortgage person.
I always like to have them do that before I meet with them. And now, not always, but typically that's the best idea. Because imagine if the loan officer says they're qualified for 600 and everything that they want is 600,000 plus, then they are not going to be happy with looking at like these $800,000 houses. And now you're like, oh, because of what the lender told us, now we have to look at these homes that are $200,000 cheaper. Like that's a big deal. That's a lot of money and a big difference in houses. So if we can get the lender to give us at least like an idea of what they qualify for before we go in the meeting, then that gives us at least one of the limits on our search criteria. Like what's the most that you could qualify for? And then like the other thought is what do you actually want to pay for a house? And then uh, what do you want in those houses? Most people tend to go up pretty close to their limits because let's be honest, like $50,000 usually does a lot in house prices. So, Scarlett, you have a question? Did you figure out your mute? Otherwise, type it in the chat. Um, yeah, but so if you could get them pre-approved before the appointment. So often I'll be like, hey, let's meet in 2 days. In the meanwhile, I want you to talk to my lender. Um, and then that way he'll give us some criteria in like our purchasing power. And then if you don't hear from him like even the day of the appointment, or hear from the lender, you can reach out and be like, hey, if you didn't talk to the lender, we can push this another day or two and move the appointment out.
I figured it out.
Yes, Scarlett, we have you.
Sorry. Okay. So I have a question. If you're done, Kylie, and those were excellent questions, by the way, and I thank you. But I want to know if somebody is qualified for a certain amount and yet they say that's just too much for me. I can't afford that, blah, blah, blah. What do you do?
I always like to get kind of two ideas. I want to know what the lender thinks that they are approved for, and then I want to know what they are willing to actually do. Um, I have a friend that I just talked to the other day. He can qualify for well into 3,000, so he can get a decent
That
house, but he would feel more comfortable around like 2,500. And so those are different conversations that we're having. It's like, do we want to go up to your max loan payment that you can have, or do you want to go where you feel comfortable? Because you could be house poor. And so if
right,
someone doesn't want to be it, and you could even say, like, hey, I'm going to show you two different houses that fit your criteria. One is where you want to be, and one is where the lender says that you can be, just to give you some contrast in the difference and to just kind of get an idea of where we should be leaning. Like if they're okay with the cheaper payment and the lesser house, then great, let's show them all of that because that's what they want. If they're like, oh, we hate everything in the lower priced homes and we love everything and what we can qualify for, then it's just that conversation like, are you okay having a higher payment? And
Right.
lots of people
He-
are.
This person in particular is just wigged out by how much everything is and what he can afford, what the lender says he can afford, and what he thinks in his mind is affordable are drastically different ideas. And I don't know how to, I'm like, I don't know how to ride a bucking bronco. What it
We'll
feels
start by
like.
showing him what he thinks that he can afford, right? If they think like my payment needs to be 2,000 and that's a $400,000 house, like go find whatever you can at 400 and say these are the homes in your range. Now you
Right.
can qualify for more. So if none of these work, we can just slowly bring up the price. And again, if they walk through a house that's $100,000 more money, it's going to be way nicer. Like period.
Right. He's
And
at
so
that for,
it's hard to stay lower once you see what you could afford and it is way nicer.
oh, see, he's completely checked out. The way he communicates is that he's just resisting like crazy. He qualifies in the 400s. He wants a home, not a condo or townhome, and he won't settle for anything less. But he says that the $400,000 range and the payment that comes with it is just way and above his capacity to even, try to digest. So,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
can't get him
So
on the lender.
Gary Keller, when he talked about this, he talked, how did he put it? Your lifestyle is ruining your ability to buy a house. Like it sounds like he probably doesn't have like a ton of debt that is making it hard for him to buy a house because he qualifies, but he probably goes and does a lot of things that he doesn't want to stop doing, like traveling, for example. If you go on a vacation every single month, like that's a lot of money. And if you would want that more than a house, then great. But if you would rather have a house and travel once a quarter, you could probably make that work, kind of an idea.
Yeah.
So
He
sometimes in our job, we end up being the like therapists, psychologists kind of an idea. And
right,
and so much of it is how you're feeling rather than the numbers, which is very hard for me. I'm a logical person and I'm like, the numbers work, it works kind of a thing. Like, let's see what it is. Logically, I know that home prices are going to go up over time. So buying now is better than buying later. Interest rates, we have no idea what they're going to do. They're probably going to stay flat this year. We'll see soon. I think the Fed's meeting today or tomorrow to talk a little bit more. But they're probably going to stay flat. So we're not going to get a better interest rate. We're also not going to get a worse interest rate, but maybe we'll get a worse interest rate. Maybe we'll get a better interest rate. When the future's unknown, what we know is now. So like logically, it makes sense to move now because we can make all of the changes in the future with interest rates and things like that. If prices go up, we're in a better place than if we bought once prices go up. So a lot of it's like, how are you feeling about this? Like, if you were to make this, like, let's talk about how that changes your life. Sometimes you might have to get open about money. Sometimes it's just like, what could you cut out in your lifestyle that would let you afford this house easily? And is that
right.
more important than the other? Right?
Yeah.
It's
And
traveling
that's
more
what
important than the house, kind of a concept in my example. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
he says that they don't understand. The lender doesn't understand. The one that he had got pre-qualified with
Mhm.
doesn't understand that I've got expenses. I pay for my kids' cars, I pay for their gas, I pay for all their expenses, and he does he goes above and beyond paying for the expenses for his children.
Hmm.
And I mean, they're adult children. And I'm like, well, you do have to make some changes if you want a house. And he says that that's, very important to him. But, I kind of let this go, and I don't want to be a flake. I want to be consistent. But, he keeps telling me, well, all I can afford is a tent. And I'm like, okay, well, all right, Mr. Coleman. Um, Coleman tents. I can do that for you too. So
Yep.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Go over to Shields, find something nice. No,
Exactly.
so you could show him a handful of property, and show him might just be send him the MLS. It
Yeah.
might be actually walk through and say, for you to afford this, like the lender says you can, you just need to figure out what you're not going to do as much of. Like, I love that you're helping your children with gas and things, but what if they paid for their own gas?
Hmm.
Just
He
started
won't
to
back
do less.
it.
And
Yeah.
then you have a house, and 30 years from now, when it's paid off, and then you get old and you die, you're leaving something for their inheritance.
Yeah.
So is their gas more important now, or is there like potentially, like with how home prices are going, that's probably $1 million that the kids get a split when he dies, just with the
At least,
house.
right.
So if we forward pace it, what's more important for him, getting the house
Okay.
or
I love that.
getting
Okay.
some gas? And sometimes
I
putting
just,
things in perspective like that, it's like maybe little sacrifices end up big, and maybe it ends up helping, right? If he gets a bunch of equity in his house, he could take out HELOCs or refinance or whatever and take a big chunk of money to do things for his children. He might be
Mhm.
their down payment one day, and he can use his home equity to actually finance that. There's a lot of great things you can do when you have equity in your house, and the sooner you buy, the faster you get equity.
I love
So
that.
you can have some of those conversations with them, and then just stick with it. Keep sending them houses. Hey, do you want to go see any of these? Do any of these work? I know this is at the top of your budget, but I thought you might like it, and your kids would be loving that you own a house rather than they have 20 extra bucks for gas, whatever that looks like. So,
You are magnificent. Thank you. Those
no,
are
you
great.
are. Go talk to these people. Put it into perspective for them. Make them see the long term, because that's what houses are. It's a long-term thing that you invest in, and it is an investment. So it will help them, right? Think about how many people like have their grandparents that pass away, and really their big thing that they have is their home, or their home becomes what they sell and live in a retirement home, and that funds the whole time until they pass away. Like, these are big investments, and sometimes this is what people are counting on for their future. So get them in
Yeah.
now. It's better off for them. Okay, go make your
This,
calls. Come to Dan
thank,
Kennedy Ignite today. It should be awesome. And I will see you all later.
thank you so
Thanks
much,
all.
Cameron. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.